A very warm welcome to the students of class 7. Today we are in the literature classroom and we are going to read about the poem Where the Mind is Without Fear, written by none other than who's considered to be the bard of Bengal, the poet of Bengal, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore. As we all know, a few days back we celebrated his birth anniversary. According to the Bengali calendar, Boishakh, it is on the 25th day of the month of Boishakh that we celebrate Rabindranath Tagore's birthday. So, Pochishe Boishakh means a lot to many of the people coming from the region of Bengal, as well as the ones who are in love with his work or who consider his work to be counted as among the greatest. Now, on this auspicious occasion, which we celebrated a few days back, this year it fell on the 8th of May. Usually it is either on the 8th of May or 9th of May, around this time, that we celebrate his birth anniversary. Now, I would like to take an opportunity to discuss about the great poet that the world has gifted to us, that God has gifted to us. So let me begin by saying something about who Rabindranath Tagore was, what were his ideals, and also to mention about his great contributions that has been given to the world, definitely to India and to the world at large. So Rabindranath Tagore, he was born in Bengal in the year 1861. He wrote poems in Bangla and also in English. Most of his English poems are just translations of the ones that have been written in Bangla. It was in 1913 that Gurudev was awarded the Nobel Prize for Literature for his collection of songs called Gitanjali, which was considered to be a profoundly sensitive and fresh sort of work by many people, by many avid readers. Tagore is the only Indian to have received the Nobel Prize for Literature. That counts him to be amongst the greatest poets. Tagore also has the honor of being the composer of our Indian national anthem Jana Gana Mana. Along with, he has also written the national anthem of Bangladesh, Amar Sonar Bangla. It is also said that the national anthem of Sri Lanka has been inspired by his work. So he has also given the inspiration he has been associated with three national anthems of three countries. He started a small school in Shantiniketan, which has taken the form of a university named as Vishwa Bharati University. The titles Gurudev, Kobi Guru, Vishwa Kobi has been bestowed upon him, and that is by which we all who love his work from the core of our heart, we all address him in that way. Rabindranath Tagore had started writing his works or penning down his works with a pen name Bhanu Singho Thakur. So his first works, in the initial phase of his life, they are under the name Bhanu Singho. So not only that, he was a poet, philosopher and artist. So in all these aspects, his contributions have been indispensable. He reshaped the Bengali literature and music and also Indian art, and which fetched him the title of Bard of Bengal or the Poet of Bengal. Bard means poet. He was an ardent anti-nationalist who denounced the title given to him by giving a title given by British Raj, which was the title of knighthood, by giving up his knighthood as a reaction to the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. He took part in the Bengal Renaissance movement, and what is that? It is a movement comprising of the cultural, social, intellectual and artistic aspects in Bengal. And it was during the 19th century to 20th century that it occurred, and he had a major part to play in it. So in the nationalist struggle to freedom, a country's nationalist or independent struggle to freedom, Rabindranath Tagore had a big role to play. You know, it took a lot of time for the people to realize the need to be free from the imperial rule, from the British rule. And the poets, there were some people who, a few people, they took up the arms in order to be at the front to fight the British Raj, to fight against the system. While some others, like Rabindranath Tagore, took up the power of the pen, resorted to the power of the pen to bring about, to ignite the people, ignite the patriotism in the people, to motivate them towards fighting for the freedom of their country, freedom of India. Rabindranath Tagore is celebrated through his, coming back to his works, he's celebrated through his paintings, sketches, doodles. It has been said that while he used to write his poems, unmindfully or maybe mindfully, I can say that, he used to doodle along them. In such a way, he used to create lines in such a way that it always showed some sort of a, some sort of a map work that he had created. His most notable works are Gora, which is the fair-faced, if you translate in English, Ghore Baire, The Home and the World. His dramas also need a special mention. Balmiki Pratibha, Chandalika, The Untouchable Girl, Rakhta Korabi, or The Red Oleanders. So these, and Daghor as well, the post office. Then there was another play that I can talk about, which is Bishor June, that was inspired or adapted from Rajorshi, another a small novel or a novella. Okay, and these were some of his greatest works. Other than that, he wrote 84 short stories, which had been compiled into more stories definitely, but 84 of them have been compiled into a book, which has been titled Golpogucho. He had escaped assassination, which is a big thing. So the sort of characters that Rabindranath Tagore had painted or he had brought to life exposed the political zeal in him in the Swadeshi movement. All right, and he always preferred the path of steady and purposeful education. He thought it was through this that people will be able to be free. It was not mere political freedom that was needed to be liberated from the British rule. He needed the people to be free of the shackles that were there in their minds, about which we are going to talk about in the poem. So this poem that we are going to read today, Where the Mind is Without Fear, this is one of his better known poems, if not best known, but better known poems. This poem can be found in the compilation Gitanjali, for which he had won the Nobel Prize. He was a patriot, and definitely Rabindranath Tagore, we can understand through his works, through his characters, what he represented in his characters, that he loved his country. And on the first reading of this poem, we might get the idea that Tagore is appealing to God to awaken the countrymen to a clear reason, to a broad-mindedness, where truth prevails and where there is understanding. The appeal of the message, however, it is for the entire universe. It is universal, not only for the Indians, but the entire world. The poet is asking God to show the people of the world to lead a better life. How can you do that? So this poem is politically charged. All right, other than this is like a prayer song to God. Other than this, when we have to talk about his poems, we also talk about the songs that he represented and that he composed. And one song that comes to my mind, this poem has been also sung as a song. And another song that comes to my mind is Ekla Cholore. We've definitely heard them in movies and adaptations and in programs, but this distinctly talks about how he perceived humankind to be, where one should take responsibility of their own actions and none. That is what he thought about, that the human should be independent, should have independent thought, independent thinking in order to progress towards a better life. So with this thought, leaving with this thought, I'm going to start off with the background of Where the Mind is Without Fear in a bit, and then we shall discuss more about the poem and read it definitely. Okay, so just as I had spoken about, we are just going to remember a few things. I had not written this. I just had these columns written down. So we are going to remember that he was known as the Bard of Bengal. Okay, we just remember his dates. Alright. We just remember his birth year, 1861. And we're going to remember that in 1913 he had received the Nobel Prize, okay, for literature. And what fetched him this was Gitanjali. Okay, only these are the things. I have already written a title that we usually address him with. And the other things are really known to us, that he was the author and songwriter and composer of Jana Gana Mana, which is our national anthem. And we know about Vishwa Bharati. Okay, so this poem, it talks about patriotism. So this is a very politically charged, patriotic poem. Alright, that spoke about the occurrences of the then pre-independent India, what people were like and what was expected of them, expected of them that they were supposed to be. So these are the things that we're going to remember. Now this poem, Where the Mind is Without Fear, it was first published in 1911. Okay, 1901. It was first published in 1901. It was initially written in Bengali, and it had been compiled under the book Noibeddo. So it had come out as one of the compositions in this book in 1901, and then in 1911 it was published in Gitanjali. Okay, 1911 in English, in Gitanjali, and in 1912 it was written in English, okay, translated in English in 1911, and then in 1912 it was published in Gitanjali, and we all know in 1913 he received the Nobel Prize for his composition. Now this poem, Where the Mind is Without Fear, the background of this poem, I've already spoken about it, that it is about India when it was under the British rule. Now through this poem, through the words of this poem, the true freedom of his country is revealed by Rabindranath Tagore, that what he understands about freedom, his own concept of freedom, has been talked about, has been revealed. And it is not just mere political freedom, okay? It is not mere political freedom. If we read the poem, if we understand, we are going to understand that Rabindranath Tagore, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, he doesn't want his people just to receive mere political freedom. What he wants is a freedom of thinking that includes moral values, virtues, okay, and definitely the goodness that is supposed to be prevalent in humankind. Now this poem is written in free verse. Now let me make this clear to you. Free verse is where you don't have a rhyme scheme. It is not set to a rhyme scheme. The ending lines of the poem, they don't match or they don't rhyme together. So that is known as free verse or blank verse, which is a characteristic of modern poetry. Okay, so we know that Rabindranath Tagore was a modern poet, and this is written in free verse, and the entire poem, throughout the poem, a single thought occurs. Whatever has been written about, whatever has been thought about, it culminates. Everything is concluded in the last lines of the poem. Okay, so it seems as if the thought started and it ended in the last line of the poem. It just continued through it. There are no gaps. Like in many poems you find that here you have stanzas, the thought starts, it ends in the second line. But here in this poem, a great feature of this is that a line of thought continues and it ends in the last line. It culminates. All the ideas, they culminate into one thing at the end of the poem. Alright. And but in Bengali, the Bengali counterpart of Where the Mind is Without Fear, which is Chitto Jetha Bhoy Shunno, titled as Prarthana or Prayer, okay, which had come out in Noibeddo in 1901. It was set to rhyme scheme, but when it was translated in English, it was translated in free verse, which also says that most of Rabindranath Tagore's works that were translated by him, of course, and in English they are in free verse. Okay, we are not going to go to any debate whether which is better or not. We are just going to learn about it. What he wants to convey through his poem. What is his message? Okay, so I've spoken about the fact. See, mostly the idea in the poem, it oscillates, or it just goes between two ideas. One is being hopeful, okay, and the other is living in a bleak atmosphere. Bleak is desolate, dark. Okay, so bleak means desolate, despaired, okay, hopeless. Better for you to know these words. So despaired or desolate. So at times he asks his people to be hopeful, or he is hopeful about what they would become if independence needs to be gained. And he also thinks about the fact that will they remain bleak, will they remain despaired and just continue to be slaves of the British Empire, be under the British rule. So that is the thought, that is the idea that oscillates throughout the poem. Okay, so having spoken about all this, now as you read through, you will get to understand the form and the style of the poem as well. Okay, so let us start reading, let us start thinking. This poem is definitely going to charge us, to motivate us, or to ponder over the questions that usually we ask. Has India truly reached or truly gained its freedom? Are we really free? The words or the lines of the poem are definitely going to make you question, make you think about the deeper questions in life that we always seem to be seeking. Okay, so let us read and let us understand. Before reading the poem, I'd like to say that this is one of the vastly read and discussed poems of Rabindranath Tagore. Okay, and I've already talked about the form and style, and I'd like to mention this as well, that you will see when you read through the poem, some the first or the initial lines have ended in a semicolon, okay, and at the end you would find a comma out there. I'll give you the significance of these. I'm going to explain them, but first let us start reading. Where the mind is without fear and the head is held high. Now this poem starts off by Rabindranath Tagore explaining what he needs in his country to be. Now I already told you that this poem is a prayer. Okay, so this is a prayer to whom, addressed to whom, you'll get to know after some time. And I've already told you there's a line of thought. So he begins by saying what he wants his country to be. And the very first thing that he wants, that a country where the mind of the people, all right, the mind of the people
is without fear. So a mind over here is a metonymy. Okay, it stands, we've already learned about metonymy, right? So this stands for the mind of the people. So it's a name just given, mind of the people, where the mind is without fear. He wants his people to be fearless, not fearing, not being frightened about the oppression from the British rule or any such oppression for that matter. He doesn't want his people to be forcefully compelled to do things that they don't want to do, they are not supposed to do as a country or as individuals. So he wants them to be free from that fear. The constant living in fear is where the people, they find themselves in a bleak situation, a desolate situation. He wants his country to have the light, to be illuminated with being fearless. And the head is held high. Now the entire poem is very ironical, children. Okay, so we find bouts of irony in here. Why? The entire poem is very ironical. At this point of time, the people, they are not fearless, but he wants them to be. Their head is not held high, which means they have lost or they have not been able to encounter with their dignity, their self-dignity, that esteem, their self-esteem is very low because they have been ruled over by the British for 200 years, for about 200 years. The oppression, the torture that has gone for so many years, it has been ingrained into their minds. Now I'll tell you something, children, you would get to know this slave mentality in some aspects is still present in our country, where we don't try to take responsibility for the things. We don't want to rule over, or we don't want to take that authority. So the poet urges his people to have that self-dignity, to be dignified, to hold their heads high up, to look up to, not look up, but just look up to to heaven, and not just that, to measure up to the British rulers, to be someone who doesn't hang their head in shame. They don't look low, but they look upright, to stand upright, so that they can take that responsibility on their heads or on their shoulders to fight for their dignity, fight for their place in their own country. And over here we already found that there is a metonymy, and I told you there are aspects of irony throughout the poem. Here in this line, head is held high. Head is held high is alliteration. Okay, so that is an alliteration where we find the repetition of the consonant sound. Head held high. So it is imperative for the countrymen, for the country folk, to stand upright, to look upwards, and to measure up to the British counterparts. Alright, so let us read again. Where knowledge is free, free education. Now Rabindranath Tagore himself, he did not, he was a truant schoolboy, or as so people jokingly comment that he was a truant schoolboy, that he ran away from school. He was such a genius. He was homeschooled though, okay, and we shouldn't take this in the negative aspect because he was a true genius. So, but he was homeschooled, and not only that, he thinks that education must be given to all. That is their right, their authority. And we all know that in our country, till the age of 14 years, we are entitled to basic education. It is imperative for the children to receive or to attain education, attain knowledge till the age of 14. It's mandatory. Otherwise, people are held up for not acting their part in the government. Knowledge is free. That is what RTE talks about, Right to Education Act. Till the 14 years of age, children are, it is mandatory for children to go to school in the entire country. Now in his time, Rabindranath Tagore, he saw only the children of affluent families or zamindars being given the opportunity to go to schools or to have education, and the other children, they just remained idle. That's why he thinks that all must be entitled to education, and his concept of education, purposeful. Remember I told about the fact that he preferred the path of steady and purposeful education. He also was of this view, his school of thought is that children should be given a natural environment to learn. They should learn through nature. That's why the schools in Shantiniketan, in Vishwabharati University, okay, the people who followed that school of education or school of thought, they always had these natural classrooms under the, being one with nature, under the trees. So children used to have their classes in a courtyard or under the trees, at times in the school rooms as well. So I think a few schools in our city as well, they follow that path. Please find out about, I know which schools are those, but please find out about that system that is followed by many schools in our city. You can take this as a home assignment, as a research work, to find out about the schools that still follow Rabindranath Tagore's school of thought regarding education. Okay, so he thought that the education is not restricted only to the upper class, but it is meant for all. Because once when knowledge is free, the country will progress. Every person, every individual is like a pillar. They are the wheels of the country, the pillar of the country. If one pillar is not strong, what will happen? The building is going to fall. If our country is a building and we are the pillars, we all have to be strong. And that strength can only be found with the absence of ignorance, with the omission of ignorance. He wants ignorance to be eliminated, and that can only be eliminated by education. And education, if it is free, it is accessible to all, that will help children to become strong pillars of the society. That basic education which is needed till that years of age, till the foundation years are done, that is going to make you a strong person. Alright, so that is what he thought about, and that is what he is praying for. Where the world has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. Kavi Guru says that the world has been broken up. It has not been broken up. That's what he thinks for his country. That's what he expects his country or his world to be. Now he addresses, now his consideration is for the entire world. His concern is for the entire world. That the world is not broken up into what? According to him, he thought, and it was not only his thought, but it was the truth, then and now as well, that it has been broken up into many fragments. And what are those fragments? In his time, it was the caste system. The upper caste, the lower caste, the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Shudras, Dalits. But there was discrimination being made. And nowadays we discriminate people on the basis of their names, their jobs, their professions, their color, their originality. Alright. Their beliefs, their religion. We do that. Even now. It is still relevant. You know, this poem that we are reading now is still relevant for today's generation. It is not only written during only for the people who Rabindranath Tagore wanted to have a free mind. Not only for them, not only for pre-independent Indians. It is for the post-independent Indians as well. People who are living in the 21st century. I might say, or I should say, we have not yet been able to reach up to that level. This poem has been written in the future tense, that he wants it to be. Have you arrived in that future? Do we think so? Is our world still united? That is what he wanted his country to be. Unity is the key. want to be free, the country has to go towards freedom. An intellectual freedom, not only a physical or a political one, intellectual freedom. Freedom of the intellect. Unity is the key. People have to be united. Regardless of their differences, their differences will occur. If we are not different, then we are not humans. Every human has the free choice, free will, or we are considered, or we are taken, we are thought of as people or as organisms to have a free will. If free will is not there, we are humans no longer. Alright, so we need to be united in spite of those differences, where the world has not been broken up. So this line is a metaphor. Okay, the next one. Into fragments by narrow domestic walls. Domestic walls. People having differences in the family. Alright, in the country itself. Alright, so domestic life, in domestic life as well. Here domestic means own, where there is unity amongst people of the same country, of their own creed, of their own caste. Alright. It was then that people from other country had come to rule over us. But can we say that we have not encountered with problems between our own people? Can we say that? We can't. There are, because we have been fragmented domestically as well. Okay, so this is a metaphor over here that we can find where Kaviguru has compared the world or with fragments, with narrow domestic walls, with walls. We have just built up walls of differences, and we don't want anybody to come through it. Differences will be there, but we should be united. We should be tolerant. That is what he means. He needs us to be tolerant. He needs his people to be tolerant in order to be free, completely free. Where there is no casteism, there is no racism, and above all, people are not people don't consider superstitions to be something that characterizes them. People are not characterized by blind faith or superstitions. Okay, baseless superstitions. So he says that baseless casteism, baseless superstitions, racism, it shouldn't be there according to him. And that is how you will be able to reach towards that freedom. Okay, so here we are going to end with our first lesson. So I'll just take you through with what we have learned today. In the first lines, we found that I already told you this is a thought. We'll continue with the thought in the next class, and which is going to culminate into a compact idea. In the first lines of the thought that we got, we understood that he wants his people to be fearless and self-dignified. Okay, so I'll just say fearless is something that he wants, and dignified. Okay, he wants his people to be dignified. It is a prayer, definitely, we should not forget that. And there should be unity. Okay, knowledgeable. I've forgotten to write this though. They should be knowledgeable. Okay, knowledgeable and united. United in nationally and internationally as well. Okay, united. And one should be tolerant. There should be no amount of baseless superstition or racism or casteism in them. So the lines that we have just read and I have just explained, they all are sort of images, okay? And these images, they explain the hopelessness and hopeful, and being hopeful and being hopeless, which is being hopeful and being bleak. I told you about the oscillation in one and then in the other. So these are images. The images carry some ironical element in them. Alright, and these are the figures of speech that we find. We find metonymy also. Metonymy in the word mind in the first line. And then irony, as you can see, irony, the entire poem is ironical, and all the images are ironical. And there we also find an alliteration, head held high, and then we have a metaphor. Okay, word has not been broken up into fragments by narrow domestic walls. There is a comparison to narrow domestic walls with the fragments, with the differences and domestic walls. That's a comparison. And images have already spoken out. So this is what your poem is till now. And all these lines, they end in semicolon, as you can see in the text, children. Now this semicolon, which says that these ideas do not have a conclusion yet, and therefore it is semicolon. So it will have when we reach the end of the poem. So the latter part of the poem, or whatever is remaining, we are going to do it in lesson 2. So please watch this video, please understand, go back and forth and read the poem, and then again go back to the explanation, and all the other things that are left will be explained in the next video. Thank you so much, children.